Look closely at the water slicing through this hypermodern metropolis, and you will find the exact place where an accelerating future violently collides with an ancient desert. It is just past dawn along Dubai Creek. The scent of dark roasted coffee drifts through the morning mist, settling over a shoreline where battered wooden boats still carry the memories of a time long before the glass towers ever touched the sky. The air is already heavy with a metallic, salty warmth that clings to the skin. The water here is an opaque, churning green, moving with the slow deliberation of a tide that has watched generations quietly pass by. Men wearing crisp white kanduras sit near the edge of the water, their faces lined, eyes squinting against the early glare of a sun that promises to be unforgiving. You can hear the rhythmic, hollow slap of water against the old wooden hulls of the abras, the traditional boats that still ferry people across the inlet. There is the low murmur of conversation in Arabic blending with the distant, constant hum of engines and industry that never entirely ceases in this place. A sudden gust of wind carries a faint trace of frankincense from a nearby doorway, mixing strangely with the smell of diesel and damp earth. This is a landscape balanced precariously between an ancient, punishing desert and an unrelenting ambition to conquer it. We are standing in a place where memory is buried just beneath layers of sudden, magnificent invention. Welcome to Culture Journey. When you walk through the streets of this city, it is incredibly easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of everything surrounding you. Buildings reach upward like mirrored needles, striving for the clouds, wrapped in gleaming facades that catch the daylight and reflect it back 100 times brighter. It all feels immaculate. It feels almost entirely new. But to truly understand this place, we need to look past the skyline and focus our attention on the ground beneath it. The sand still shifts just beyond the city limits. This is not just a tale of engineering or sudden wealth. It is a very human story of audacity, of a people who looked out over an empty, harsh horizon and collectively decided they would build the impossible. It is about the incredibly sudden leap from a quiet coastal trading port to a global crossroads, and the fragile, beautiful ways a culture attempts to hold on to its soul while racing into the unknown future faster than any city on Earth. Strip away the steel and glass of the modern era, and the landscape we are standing in right now becomes almost entirely unrecognizable. The roar of luxury engines fades into the specific, rhythmic sounds of maritime trade and pearl diving. Before the oil began to flow, the absolute lifeblood of this region was the pearl. Men would hold their breath and dive into the crushing depths of the Gulf, their skin stinging from the salt, their lungs burning for air. They were tethered only by woven ropes and the desperate hope of finding a shimmering sphere hidden inside a rough shell. They sang rhythmic chants to keep time, songs of longing and the sea that still echo in the traditional music played today. The wealth of that era was measured in individual breaths, and the rhythm of life was dictated entirely by the ocean currents and the shifting seasons. Families lived closely together in courtyard houses built from coral stone, harvested from the Gulf, and bound with gypsum. These homes were designed with wind towers that caught the absolute slightest breeze off the water and funneled it down into the shaded rooms below. It was an ingenious, deeply elegant solution to the sweltering summer heat. It was a physical manifestation of living in quiet harmony with a difficult environment rather than fighting a war against it. You can still find the quiet remnants of this past hidden away in the Fahidi historical neighborhood. As we walk through its narrow, winding alleys, the temperature noticeably drops. The high, rough, textured walls block the harsh sunlight, creating cool, shadowed paths that feel like a secret shared only with the wind. The air simply smells differently in these lanes. It is less about exhaust or the sterile chill of air conditioning, and much more about dry earth, old wood, and the occasional waft of burning oud drifting lazily from an open doorway. If you pause for a moment and just listen, the silence here feels entirely different from the quiet of a modern hotel lobby. It is a silence that actually holds memory. You can almost imagine the voices of merchants negotiating over sacks of spices brought from India, or feel the quiet anxiety of families waiting on the shoreline for the purling fleets to finally return after months at sea. The sudden discovery of oil certainly accelerated the trajectory of this land, but it was not the sole catalyst for the sprawling metropolis we see today. Long before the first oil revenue flowed, the city had already made an audacious gamble to dredge its creek, transforming a quiet, purling village into a bustling free trade port. When the oil wealth finally arrived, there was an immense urgency to transform that temporary windfall into permanent global relevance. The leaders of this young nation knew the wells would eventually run dry, so they poured that wealth into a staggering, unprecedented project of complete reinvention. Consider for a moment the sheer physical reality of what it means to build a city like this. It requires dredging the sea to create entirely new coastlines out of nothing. To keep the park grass green requires moving mountains of earth and pumping millions of gallons of desalinated water every single day, an absolute act of defiance against geography. Standing at the base of these immense towers, craning your neck until the steel simply dissolves into the atmospheric haze, you are witnessing a pure monument to human will. The sheer volume of glass, the impossible architectural angles, and the way these facades catch the golden hour to paint the sky in crimson fire all combine to create a beauty that feels undeniably surreal to the senses. Yet, within this sprawling, ultra-modern metropolis, the rhythms of traditional Emirati life continue, often entirely hidden in plain sight. In the early evenings, as the oppressive heat finally begins to break and a soft breeze rolls in off the Gulf, local families still gather. They do not always meet in the gleaming shopping malls, but in much quieter, intimate spaces. Step away from the restless pace of the city streets and cross the threshold into a private home. Here, you are welcomed into the majlis, the traditional reception room that serves as the beating heart of Emirati hospitality. The atmosphere shifts immediately. The air feels deeply grounded, deliberately unhurried, anchored by the rich scent of incense and quiet conversation. The seating is low to the ground, arranged continuously along the walls, ensuring everyone in the room faces each other. A brass coffee pot is brought out. The pouring of the coffee is not just a gesture of hospitality, it is a meticulous ritual. You hear the sharp clinking of the small, handleless cups. You notice the precise, modest amount poured into each one, and you learn the subtle gesture of shaking the cup slightly from side to side when you have had enough. The rich scent of the cardamom-laced coffee mixes seamlessly with the sweet, sticky aroma of fresh dates resting on a silver platter. In the corner of the room, resting patiently on a carved wooden perch, you might even see a falcon. The bond between the Emirati people and these magnificent birds is ancient and profound. You watch the bird, its head covered by a tiny crafted leather hood, waiting in perfect stillness. When the hood is removed, the dark, piercing eyes of the predator take in the room. It is a living connection to a time when survival in the barren sands depended entirely on the sharp vision and swift flight of these creatures. Here, conversations unfold slowly, deliberately. They speak of business and modern life, certainly, but they also speak of family lineages that stretch back centuries. They talk of times when the desert was not a weekend playground to escape the city, but the very center of their entire existence. There is a profound, unshakable respect for heritage that runs perfectly parallel to their embrace of the future. You see this continuity in the way traditional dress is worn with such immense pride. The crisp white garments of the men and the flowing, elegant black robes of the women are not historical costumes brought out for special occasions. They are a daily, living assertion of identity in a city where they are vastly outnumbered by expatriates from literally every single corner of the globe. It is a quiet insistence that while the physical landscape has changed entirely, the people who belong to this soil remain deeply rooted in it. The desert itself is never truly forgotten. It is always right there, waiting patiently just beyond the last major highway interchange. For many locals, the rolling dunes are not a barren wasteland. They are a sanctuary. When the winter months arrive and the weather finally cools, families pack their vehicles and head out into the deep sands. They set up camps that range from simple, quiet tents to elaborate gathering spaces, laid with heavy woven carpets. Imagine sitting by a fire in the deep desert as the night falls. The silence out here is absolute. It is a heavy quiet that almost presses in against your ears. The red sand beneath you still holds the lingering warmth of the day. Above, the sky is a sprawling, endless canopy of stars, completely undimmed by the city lights that glow faintly on the far horizon. This is where the older generations come to simply breathe. They come here to escape the concrete, to remember a time when the horizon was completely unbroken by skyscrapers. The connection to this landscape is visceral and raw. It is a powerful reminder that before they were builders of impossible towers, they were master navigators of sand and sea. This duality is perhaps the most intensely fascinating aspect of the city. It is a place of stark, unbelievable contrasts that somehow manage to gracefully coexist. You can spend the morning inside a pristine sanctuary of glass and steel, where the climate is perfectly controlled, and the very same afternoon find yourself bargaining for saffron in a bustling, deeply fragrant spice market, where the heavy heat of the day amplifies every single scent. The traditional souks are a magnificent sensory overload. Sacks overflowing with vibrantly colored spices line the narrow, uneven walkways. You see mountains of golden turmeric, earthy cumin, and fragile dried rose petals. The air is thick and heavy with the competing aromas of frankincense, roasted nuts, and the exhaust from the nearby riverboats constantly ferrying people across the water. Merchants call out in half a dozen different languages, offering everything from intricately woven textiles to heavy, glittering gold jewelry. The energy is frantic, chaotic, and deeply, beautifully human. It feels remarkably far removed from the pristine, ordered, polished environment of the financial district just a few miles away. And yet, both of these spaces are authentically Dubai. The city is a true global crossroads, a massive, ongoing experiment in human congregation. People arrive here from absolutely everywhere. They carry their own heavy ambitions, their own rich cultures, their own recipes, and their own music. They build intricate lives in the long shadows of the immense towers, creating small, vibrant, pulsing communities that weave a complex, multicultural fabric perfectly over the underlying Emirati framework. Walking through a neighborhood like Karama as night falls is a completely different kind of immersion. The neon signs hum and buzz in the humid air. The scent of sizzling flatbreads and rich, deeply spiced curries drifts from open storefronts, mingling with the sweet smoke of water pipes. You see men gathered around small tables, drinking intensely sweet milk tea, playing board games on the pavement. These streets thrum with a different kind of heartbeat. When you sit in a small, brightly lit cafeteria within a neighborhood built by the working diaspora, sharing a plate of intensely flavorful South Asian street food while listening to the evening call to prayer echo softly from a nearby mosque, you realize something profound. The city is not just a monument to wealth or ambition. It is a living testament to the staggering variety of human experience converging in one highly unlikely place. The city absorbs all these varied influences, integrating them into an identity that is constantly shifting and endlessly evolving. The transformation from endless desert to global megacity was not simply a physical construction project involving steel and glass. It was a profound, deeply complex cultural shift. It required adapting to a massive influx of the entire world while simultaneously attempting to preserve a core, fragile sense of self. This constant tension between the past and the future, between the fiercely local and the broadly global, is exactly what makes the culture here so incredibly compelling to witness. It is an entire society trying to balance the immense, crushing weight of its rapid modernization with the quiet, persistent pull of its own ancient roots. As you wander through the districts, you notice the faces of the people who actually built the modern city. The laborers, the shopkeepers, the sailors. Their stories are woven into the very concrete of the towering buildings. They send money home to families thousands of miles away, living a life defined by distance and grueling routine. Their presence is the very foundation of this city, grounding the gleaming facades in the stark reality of human endurance. To walk these streets is to understand that every impossible monument soaring above us was built by the quiet, unrelenting labor of individuals who left their own worlds behind to construct someone else's tomorrow. As the sun begins to set over the Arabian Gulf, the city transforms yet again. The glass facades reflect the fading light, turning beautiful shades of bruised purple and deep burnt orange. The oppressive heat slowly lifts, and the streets gradually fill with people stepping out to enjoy the evening. The massive fountains dance to music, the lights flicker on across millions of windows, and the sheer, overwhelming scale of human achievement laid out before you is completely undeniable. But if you look closely, if you look past the glittering spectacle and the luxury, you might see an old man sitting quietly near the water, just watching the wooden boats drift by as they have for a century. You might notice the careful, intensely deliberate way a father adjusts his son's traditional headpiece before they cross the threshold of a mosque. You might feel the sudden, startling coolness of a stray breeze that has traveled across endless miles of open, empty desert just to reach you. These are the quiet moments that linger in the mind. It is the sudden realization that beneath the staggering architecture and the relentless driving ambition for the new, this remains a deeply human place. It is a culture built on incredible resilience, on the audacious belief that even the harshest environments can be shaped and molded. But it is also built on the deep understanding that true identity is carried not in the monumental buildings we construct, but in the quiet daily rituals we preserve, the ancient stories we tell, and the memories we absolutely refuse to let go. Thank you for walking with us today. If you found a connection in these stories and want to continue exploring the quieter corners of our world, please share this journey and subscribe. There are so many more places we have yet to discover together. Until next time, travel slowly and stay curious.